Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the Live and Let Merge sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
Live and let merge. I was going to go with some golfers are livid. I would like to trademark capital LIV, small ID, and have like Rory McIlroy and some of the others wearing it around the course. What did McIlroy say? I still hate Live and I hope it goes away or hope it dies or whatever.
Rory spoke on Wednesday morning right before we recorded this, and I actually thought he was very reasonable. What he said was he feels like he feels a little betrayed. Obviously, he staked his reputation on the PGA Tour and its moral authority. But he also said he understands that in the grand scheme for golf and for golfers, this is probably ends up being a better setup. So, personally, he said he feels upset, but he said that taking himself out of it, he understands the motivations.
All right. Can I just ask someone to put on big boy pants for a second? Can we go with the big boy pants?
Yes.
The moral authority of the PGA Tour I don't care what Jay Monahan said. I don't care what the broadcast partners say. You're going to listen to these folks, and you're going to emerge from the room saying this for-profit enterprise is going to have a moral authority, and you're going to lean on that and say, I'm behind the PGA Tour, not those bad guys over there, and then be surprised when the suitcase is full of money and Eben Novy-Williams, Novy_Williams on the Twitter made his op-ed debut today on Sportico. Joe, check it out. You know it's always all about the money. You know the money's going to win out. I mean, Woodward and Bernstein were not at twosome playing up Augusta on Sunday afternoon, but their adage of follow the money is true of politics, it's true of business, and it's true of sports. You knew that the endless pool of money was going to win. You cannot compete with an endless pool of money. And he was really, really buying into the notion of the moral high ground of the PGA Tour while all of his cohorts are going and making bank with LIV. Come on.
I mean, I obviously agree with you. To me, this is a marriage of convenience where both sides get what they want, right? The PGA Tour gets to be the voting majority. They get to appoint the majority of the board as well. They get to be the operational power of a global commercial professional golf enterprise, right? It is more power for the PGA Tour today or when this deal gets done than they had a month ago. And they get unlimited backing. And what LIV and what PIF and the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, what they get is they get the ability to provide that funding, right? This is what both sides wanted. LIV wanted PGA wanted more power and more say over global professional golf, check. And PIF certainly seemed like it wanted to be the money source behind a large chunk of professional global golf. And they got that as well. And to me, Scott, the big moral here is if you're willing to spend to lose billions of dollars, which is what it seemed like, at least in the near term, PIF was going to do with LIV Golf, you can buy pretty much anything, right? I was joking with a friend of mine yesterday. I wish PIF wanted my apartment. Right, I would sell it in a heartbeat. Right, like if you're going to overvalue things, or if you're willing to kind of throw unlimited.
But you know how I always bring things to real estate, Eben. But there is an equivalent in real estate, and I always bring it to this. When Bruce Ratner wanted to bring the Barclays Center to Brooklyn, I understand you get displaced, whatever, but if you were in his way and you had a 1-bedroom apartment or you were one of the lucky ones. Like, those who sold early did okay. Yeah. Those who held out and were blocking the big project, they made bank. That's it. I have something you need and want, and the PGA Tour, it's sort of the respectability, it's the influence, and LIV had the money to make it happen. I am in no way, shape, or form surprised that it wound up the way it did. A little faster than I thought it would. But looking at it from sort of your Harvard business case study, if I'm the PGA Tour, if I'm the players, aren't you looking back and saying, why was it so easy? I understand money, But why was it so easy to come and take my players? What were they so unhappy about? What were their deaf ears on? And we saw the changes. All of a sudden, the changes were made and more money was found for the players. Boy, that happened fast. That was the failure here, that a system was created whereby your most important product, the players, were left to feel like they needed a better option. That was the failure here.
And I think that is also a money thing, right? When you offer Dustin Johnson $200 million contract, which the PGA Tour was never going to do, you're probably going to lose Dustin Johnson. One of the big questions I have, Scott, and we should say that this announcement came out yesterday. There's no real deal points here yet. We have no idea exactly how this thing is structured. How much money is PIF getting in? How much equity are they owning? There's still a lot of questions we need to see. One of the big questions I think on the player side is what happens with those big LIV contracts, right? Justin Johnson signed a $200 million contract that was over a series of years. That contract is not fully paid yet. Do they get that money paid out? Is it a wash as they work to reintegrate a lot of these players back into the kind of PGA Tour, European Tour
Paging
system?
Mike McCann, contract law.
So many questions, I think, that have to happen here, and especially we can go back to Rory for a second. Rory and Tiger, who were probably the two most vocal and biggest names that stayed. I would assume, and Tiger's number I think was like $800 million. I assume they got massive offers from LIV Golf that they turned down. And if those players get paid out on their way back in, I imagine they'll feel some sort of way as well. So not just on the top tier money side, but on the player money side, there's a whole bunch of questions here that need to be answered. And I imagine no matter which way it breaks, there's going to be a whole class of players that feel like they were done wrong by the way this thing laid out.
All right, let me look through my text messages here because I'm trying to find a guy in the a very smart guy involved in sports business. Don't want to use his name. He says here, this is just his take right away. This is what I woke up to. Okay. Smart man, sports business, been around a lot of deals, etc. The top 10 golfers in the world, Tiger, Rory. Is Tiger top 10? No, but you get it. Tiger, Rory, Spieth, Scheffler, Rahm, Thomas, whatever, etc. should all sit out next season and only play the majors. That's all anyone wants to play or watch anyway. And they are rich enough to do it. And then let's see how the new tour does. Laughing money tongue emoji and a thinky emoji.
I mean, it's an interesting proposition. Again, because we're talking about money wins, there's going to be more money for golfers now, right? Playing the June Honda Classic is probably going to pay you more in 2 years than it did this year, and certainly more than it did 2 years ago because of the way all this played out. So certainly, I would imagine a lot of those golfers are probably pretty upset, but the other half to this deal, and this is what Rory was alluding to, I think, the other half of this deal is that there's probably going to be a lot more money filtering to golfers as part of it. And this is Jay Monahan, who's the PGA Tour commissioner, will be CEO of this new combined entity. This is the thing that he keeps coming back to. I think it is the right rhetorical approach for him, which is that for a group in the PGA Tour that ostensibly, and we can debate this, represents the PGA Tour professionals and the golfers, he just struck a deal that is going to pay those golfers a significantly more amount of money moving forward.
I'm sticking with like the NFL players had to give to get more money. They needed to play a 17th game.
Yeah.
I want to see the LIV golfers be adamant. We're only playing 54 holes. That's it. I'm out on Saturday. My work is done here. I'm 3 shots up on Saturday. I want to get paid. Bye-bye. Yeah. That's the point I want to negotiate. But hey, Eben, there's so many tentacles to this. What about the sponsors? And of course, we haven't really seen it. All right, I want to go right to FedEx because it's obviously a top sponsor of the PGA Tour. In a time or at a time when Bud Light sees its problem, Target seeing its problem, I'm FedEx. Are my customers okay with me being the title sponsor with an entity doing business with MBS? I don't know if it's yes. I don't know if well, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just guessing that none of the sponsors were consulted because they did. From a journalism standpoint, by the way, kudos to keeping it as quiet as you did. I mean, kudos, like very, very well done. That's a small circle of folks who managed to keep their mouths shut. But you also had to, the downside of that is you had to blindside your partners. And they're going to have to answer questions to their shareholders, to their customers. I'm curious to see which sponsors speak out and say, this is not what I signed up for. I should have been consulted. I pay you a lot of money. Don't make unilateral decisions like this.
You were talking earlier about the moral authority that the PGA Tour and some of its players were preaching over the past year and a half. Some of that definitely applies to sponsors as well, right? And the truth is that once this deal closes, there is really no way to be involved in professional golf anywhere without at least tacitly accepting or understanding.
Only if you play on the Asian Tour. You can play on the Asian Tour.
And we'll see where that one ends up. But there's really no way to be involved in this enterprise anymore without at least kind of cozying up to and understanding your acceptance of money coming directly from the Saudi state. So I think that, that is, the sponsors are going to be a really interesting one here as well. Because again, the same conversation about the players. The value of these sponsorships just went up, right?
Yep.
In the same way that players are going to get paid more, there's probably going to be a bigger commercial opportunity for sponsors as well. So that same kind of push and pull of, I don't like this, but the business is about to go soaring, I do think exists to sponsors as well. Scott, one thing I want to kind of broaden this conversation out and hear your thoughts on is, this comes at a time when PIF, the same sovereign wealth fund, is spending a lot of money trying to lure some of the biggest soccer players in the world to come play in the Saudi domestic league.
Benzema, yes.
The same fund just bought Newcastle United. It is clear that the Saudi aspirations in sports are not just professional golf, and it does feel like this is a playbook, maybe not directly in the LIV Golf kind of way, but I imagine this is a conversation talking about doing business with MBS, doing business with the Saudi state, that is going to become bigger and bigger as it has already over the past year, just across global sports in general.
This will certainly act as an accelerator to the expansion of Saudi investors into U.S. sport, without a doubt. It's okay. Who was going to break the ice, right? When we reported first that the NBA was going to be opening up to outside sources of capital, sovereign wealth funds being among them, one of the questions I had was, okay, well, is anybody omitted from the list? Is any sovereign wealth fund omitted from the list? And the answer was like, not expressly, no. However,
case-by-case basis.
Yeah, my case-by-case basis, and to which I believe we hypothesized, okay, Tomasic probably has a better chance than PIF. However, now the door is, what do you say? Is the door, is this a cracked? Is this in a jar, or is this a kicked open? What are we saying about the door here? I think this is sort of a cracked. I'm gonna I'm gonna give you a metaphor from my life. I'm going to give you a metaphor. Anyone who has a cat understands this one. It's the crack, but the cat uses its head and kind of, it's not like a human kicking that thing in and the door frame breaks. This is the cat pushing it open to a decent amount where any large size, mid-size animal can certainly get its way in.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this conversation is exactly, largely, I think, what the aim is for the Saudi PIF fund, right? It is a money-losing venture in LIV without question, probably a money-losing venture in whatever this new golf thing is, at least at the very, very start. But a group that seems very willing to spend that money because of all the other things it opens up. And if it does open up the opportunity to buy 10% of the, I'm just spitballing here, the Washington Wizards, then I think you start to see return in a different kind of way. So
at a $32 billion valuation.
I think this conversation is exactly the direction. I saw some people speculating on Twitter. I think it's an interesting thought experiment about, is everything in global sports for sale? And the, I guess maybe the more broader hypothetical, if PIF has $620 billion under management, Scott, if they went to the NBA and wanted to buy it for $200 billion, so a 3x on every team's valuation, roughly, if you look at Sportico's valuations, is that on the table? I think it's an interesting kind of thought experiment in light of yesterday's news.
Can I make fun of Kurt Badenhausen for a second? And
Please.
This is no fault of Kurt, but when the Ottawa Senators sell for $1 billion plus, We're going to have to 3x the Sportico valuations themselves and say maybe that $600 billion ain't working.
The Suns didn't do that already.
This is the ultimate. Something is worth what somebody's willing to pay. And I know Gary Bettman has his issues with valuations. I'm like, Gary, we publish our methodology. You can look at it. We understand that somebody, for whatever reason, whether it's head over or heart over head, whether it's scarcity, we get it. Somebody may want to far overpay what we think this is worth. Okay, we get it, and that will recalibrate. What we will not do is artificially recalibrate our valuations to assess for what we think might happen. We're going to wait for it to actually happen. All right. I don't know. That was a little tangent of me getting angry on Gary for a second, which I'm allowed to. But we should tell everybody I'm in LA right now for our women's conference, and I had a great shot set up. Like, this is your standard Marriott desk shot. I'm not in love with it. Like, I don't know, it looks a little goofy in the back. I have the headrests there. I had a great shot with crypto. Right. I mean, I'm at LA Live. Crypto right outside the window, and I looked like I was in witness protection because of the sun backlighting me.
Yeah, I feel first person to testify against a Mexican.
Yeah, if our cords weren't so flimsy, and maybe I'd like short this whole thing out, I'd turn it to look. But I just can't do it. So maybe I'm a little grumpy because of that, because I thought I was doing something really creative, and you'd like it, and our digital media editor core development would like it, and we all both said, nah, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Can I use my 30 years in the business to put my Kreskin hat on?
Please,
by the way?
Please.
All right, thank you. Is there any doubt now that there will be the PGA LPGA merger? Women's golf is women's golf's next.
This morning, yeah.
You were.
Where does LPGA fit in all of this? Right.
This is where it fits. Roll it on up. That's where it fits.
Yeah, and you can. There's obviously a whole can of worms around Saudi involvement in that as well for obvious reasons. But yes, this is the. And maybe I should have qualified. This is the global professional golf hegemon for men's golf, right? Not yet there
hegemon
for women. Yeah, I'm using big words here to describe how
hegemon.
powerful this new entity is.
Hegemon, okay.
But yes, it does. You could certainly see the LPGA fitting in here from a synergy standpoint and just from a business opportunity.
And speaking of business opportunities, nothing final. And while LIV is certainly spending handsomely to collect some of the best soccer players in the world, we've mentioned Ronaldo at Al Nassr and Karim Benzema, LIV did buy 4 of the top clubs in the Saudi League. You would think that Lionel Messi would be a high target on that list. Certainly would further legitimize, what they're doing. However, it seems that Senor Messi prefieres Miami. So there is a report, and again, not done yet, that Lionel Messi will be headed to Inter Miami, teaming with Jorge Mas and David Beckham. You can be sure that this deal, and Beckham signed the ultimate deal, right? 25 mil for the right to, So if Messi can get what? 20% of the franchise, 20% equity. What do you think? What do you need to give up to get Lionel Messi to come to MLS right now and turn down Barca, turn down $400+ million per year in Saudi? What do you have to do to get Messi? And what furthermore, if it happens, what does it do for MLS?
Yeah, so for the first question, there's been some reporting that he has potentially been offered. And I have not heard this personally, but potentially been offered a chunk of the revenue sharing from the Apple deal, and also a potential chunk of
I'm not sure that's at all that big a number.
Sales increases under Adidas. Right, so think of that as kind of like a commission signing in some ways, that the commercial boost that the league is going to get via jersey sales and via people signing up to watch him via Apple, just kind of directly, a chunk of that goes directly into his pocket.
Mansana.
We would not be surprised if there's some equity involved as well. There is a beautiful through line, and you mentioned it there with Beckham, that if he does come to Inter Miami, he is coming to the team that David Beckham launched as part of that original MLS contract, which, as you said,
kudos to David Beckham for the foresight there, boy. Yep.
For $25 million, right? It was shortly after New York City paid $100 million. Beckham and his partners got to pay $25 million. So there is a nice little synergy there between what I would say, Scott, are the two, if Messi does come again, the two most impactful MLS signings probably ever, right? I mean, maybe Freddie Adu jumps in that bucket, even though what it turned out to was maybe not what people expected. But the amount of buzz around David Beckham coming to this league towards the end of his career, I think probably gets overshadowed, to be totally honest, by Leo Messi leaving Paris Saint-Germain and deciding to, at a time when other people seem to be interested, right? It's not just the Saudis.
Top clubs in the world would really want him right now.
Top clubs in the world are interested. His decision to come to Inter Miami. So I think this is again, I'm not a huge fan of MLS kind of trying to lure some aging stars, but this is a different animal, and this is a huge moment for the league.
Yeah, I'm curious if he does come, sort of what the bounce is. What is the Messi bounce? I'm sorry, I can't give you an alliteration like Beckham bounce. What is Messi Mountain? How high is Messi Mountain? How high do you pile the cash around Messi Mountain to scale Mount Lionel? Sponsor value certainly goes up. Just sort of appreciation of the asset itself, the team itself goes up. Every affiliation goes up. Does it stick? How sticky is it all? I would watch, but how? I don't know. Am I watching every game? Am I buying season tickets? Not sure, but certainly a good market for him. And by the way, also stadium real estate transaction. As we've said, the teams are just 10 poles to other things. Yep. Be nice to have Messi involved in the market and every other 10 pole, whether it's media, finance, real estate. We say it all the time. Certainly helps to have Messi alongside David Beckham and Jorge Mas.
And it shows a very divergent path between the Messi and Ronaldo comparisons, right? That have happened throughout their entire careers. For Ronaldo to take a huge chunk of money to seemingly end his career or spend a chunk of the end of his career in Saudi Arabia, and then for Messi to decide not to go that route, to take, again, what I assume is a large chunk of money, but in a different way to play in Miami. Just very divergent paths for the two of the three most famous athletes in the world right now.
All right, let's just switch focus here to the WNBA story that our Emily Karen broke. And again, it's the money winning. You want to invest in the Chicago Sky. You got 10 million? No bueno. 20? Nope. 30? Nope. Keep going. Yeah. And we actually played when Emily told us this story was coming. You and I played what's the valuation going to be on the club? I said 60. Did I say 60?
I think you said 60, yeah.
I said 60 million. Emily went, I think, a little lower?
Lower, I think,
she was at 50 or 55 million. And shame on me. Eben Novy-Williams chimed in with $85 million valuation. I have many reasons to call you out of your mind. And I took this one to say you're out of your mind at 85 million. And then Emily kind of texted us and said, bullseye, baby. Like, there's no reason to have these conversations, you said. Just let me guess, and I'll get it right on. But at $85 million valuation, Laura Ricketts among the new investors, they sold 10% of the team, took in $8.5 million. So even I can do that math. $85 million valuation. Second in league history to the Seattle Storm. Looking at infrastructure investment. Hello, real estate. What else can we do and make part of the community? So another team, another women's league, another women's team cementing roots at big money valuations. And I think you and I both see it only going higher.
Yeah, it's another data point to conversations we've had on this show a lot. It makes me think back to when Jess Berman, the commissioner of the NWSL, was on the show a few months ago. Right, there is a huge momentum here, and it is not just for any specific league. Right, you're talking WNBA valuations getting close to, or in the Seattle case, at least already over $100 million. The NWSL Angel City also been valued over $100 million in a funding round. The women's cricket teams, Scott, which we talked about.
You love this. This is your go-to data point. This is your go-to data point.
4 of those 5, I believe, sold for over $100 million. The inaugural teams, which began play either this season or next season. It's women's sports all over the globe, right, that are seeing these massive revenue jumps and valuation increases. So it's great for the W, obviously. It's also really great for, I think, anyone else who is already invested or is thinking about investing in women's sports in some capacity.
Let's look forward. What did we used to say? Well, NFL team's really expensive, so maybe you can buy an NBA team. And then it was, all right, well, NBA teams are really expensive. Maybe your get-in is the NHL. The NHL teams are really expensive. You're like, well, maybe you want to start with MLS. Like we hear bankers, if you're going to get involved, well, here's value. You can get into lower price point, maybe MLS. Okay, well, you know what? That's getting up there now. Maybe you can do WNBA. Well, maybe you can do NWSL. I think we're now down to the pickleball, right? if you want to be involved in sports, you pickle battle. Like, where do I want to go? And by the way, that is also like, what was our dude perfect? $5 million? What was that?
I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember. Yeah,
$5 million valuation sounds right.
I think it was a $5 million valuation. All right, so now even there. Now what's next? What am I looking at? What's the next? Tech ball? My favorite sweatshirt, my orange tech ball sweatshirt that everybody asks me, what is that? I'm like, imagine soccer on a ping pong table. That's what tech ball is. Yeah, go kill yourself trying to do that. But that's where we are. And we've talked to people. Again, Joe Maloof was one of them. He very confidently stated the value of these teams is just going to go up. And I kind of pumped his brakes a little bit, right? I was like, well, Joe, if the media can, or if for any reason, if the diminution in viewership, or, I mean, the NBA is looking at another 2x, 3x, does it end? And if it does, what happens to the valuations? Are there warning signs? Are there concerns? What gives you pause? Because we have not seen an upside-down sale. What gives you pause that maybe this seemingly endless appreciation ends, pauses, dips? I don't know. But, I mean, are you comfortable coming in? The risks are getting greater the more you pay every time.
No question, and you're right about the where women's sports right now fit there. It's lower price points, so it's open to a lot more people. I also think, Scott, if you were take away the total dollar figures, just a return on investment percentage-wise, if I told you had to put your money somewhere and sell in 5 years and capture just the percentage appreciation, I think NWSL is probably right in that conversation, right? About, in terms of, again, just growth.
It's beating my Marcus by Goldman Sachs 5%?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes,
okay. All right. Well, then maybe I made a mistake. I should have invested in the Bay Area club. Because right now I got the money in the Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Thank you, David Solomon.
Yeah, your money market account, maybe not appreciating in the way that a lot of sports teams are. But yeah, just a few years ago.
But I don't have any risk.
Way less risk. You're absolutely right there. Just a few years ago, NWSL teams were selling for single million, right? And now it seems like multiple tens of millions, 53 for the new expansion fees. That's the new bench set, right? So, appreciation-wise, significant growth.
Every time I see one of the events on TV, I really love watching. Everybody's giving viewership numbers. Like, it comes out right away. I'm like Oklahoma in the College World Series, and we saw like the Love's backing. Another great story by Emily Karen explaining the finances behind that program. You get the Women's World Series, and we're saying, okay, how many million people watch that? The volleyball we know is going gangbusters. It's going to be interesting when you sort of separate the women's NCAA Final Four now. Look at how much attention they got there. I believe it was Jimmy Pitaro was talking about it's getting a lot harder for us to have to keep these women's sports. They were just thinking about the main things like the NBA and the appreciation there. Like, look at what's happening here. Good news, bad news. Good news is more people are watching. That's great for us. Bad news is we got to pay for it. It's not the easiest thing to do, and Eben Novy-Williams is not helping. That's the problem here.
Hype man here. It's really true, and we're going to see this come to, I think, stark relief at some point soon with the NCAA's championship deal, right? That ESPN deal is coming up. There's been a lot of talk about spinning off the women's basketball tournament. The argument against doing that, Scott, is that it devalues all the other things, like women's softball World Series, like the men's college World Series, like the women's volleyball, all that. But all those properties are seeing huge jumps, right? Women's volleyball, softball, women's college lacrosse viewership-wise has done really well for ESPN. I think the other parts of that package that a lot of people kind of consider as worth $0 because of the cost it takes to produce them, I also think are starting to show actual value for ESPN and also for whoever may be next in line as well.
Novy-Williams, I have to go, and you know why?
We got a big event coming up.
We have an event, but that's not why. Emily Karen, the aforementioned Emily Karen, is hungry. And luckily I have been at Marriott forever, so I have the lovely platinum status. And the executive, I would say the executive lounge at the LA Live Marriott, aces. I was down there. Yeah, very good. So I messaged Emily. I'm like, hey, I'm having breakfast. That was earlier. I was up early. So she's like, okay, come let me in the lounge. Can't have her hungry on event day. He is Eben Novy-Williams on the Twitter, Novy_Williams. I'm Scott Soshnick on Twitter at Soshnick. Our producer is Matt Whitehurst. Our digital media editor is Cora Veltman. She too is out here for the women's event. See you soon, Cora or Carrot Top, whatever you are on Twitter. I know you love it when I remind everybody that the show can be found at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.